All right, and welcome back to the Prometheus Afterthoughts podcast, the podcast where we talk to the most recent boot, and that is, in this case, a double boot in episode 10, so we're only talking to the first person, Antonio. Antonio, how are you today?
Hey everyone, I'm doing good. It's been a long year coming for this, so I'm very ready.
All right, so the floor is yours. You can talk about anything you want. We are here to listen.
Yeah. I guess I was very glad to finally see how things ended up for me. Obviously I knew I got booted there, but I was kind of missing half the story on that. So it's really nice to see how all those pieces came together. Although, I would have wished they didn't come together, but it was still cool to see how it all came. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so like one of the big things is like obviously you were destroying the challenges all season long. So like I mean, you can't really blame the players for being like
Mhm.
Antonio didn't win, like this is the chance, because honestly that would have just been the like biggest blunder if they didn't do
Mhm.
so. But yeah,
Yeah.
what was going through your head about like winning all of these challenges?
Yeah. So I think even before it was even like individual, kind of towards the start when we were still in our teams, I was doing a lot better than I was expecting to, I guess. I didn't plan to come in being a competition beast. But I think I'm used to like a bit more challenging, longer term competitions from Discord orgs. And so when I came here, I was like, oh my gosh, these questions are so easy. Like I can't not get them right because how do you mix this thing up? So that was kind of like the tone that was set very early on. And it just carried with me. And then I think once we got to day two, I just won one too many, and I was like, okay, I have to just keep winning them because you can give yourself one win. I think one win is fine in the early merge, but once you start picking up more wins is when it becomes a problem. And I accidentally won more than I would have liked and had to keep winning. And once I didn't, I was gone.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, I was going to say the Discord portion of it, and then you ended up saying it because I do remember in the actual game itself, could have been towards the end of day one, maybe the beginning of day two, you do end up talking to Bloody and being like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, like these challenges are pretty easy. But it's really
Mm-hmm.
funny though, because like I do agree with you. I think, we play test all of our challenges. So like I do think the challenges are easy, but we clearly see that some people struggle. And, not everyone has
Mm-hmm.
strengths in puzzles or agility or endurance, everyone's got their own thing. But I mean, we also don't want the challenges to be too difficult because
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're on a schedule. Like we can't have challenges last an entire hour because pretty much an entire round is a little bit more than an hour. So, I
Yeah.
mean, completely makes sense. And like in terms of, knowledge, based stuff, like we know you've taken notes, which is like the
Mm-hmm.
thing everyone should be doing. So,
Mm-hmm.
speaking of your notes, I know you have a lot of notes and stuff you want to touch
Yes.
upon. So, once again, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I have a list. Let me just pull up the first one. I think the thing that probably everyone is wanting to know is the Bloody versus Tracy vote. Why the heck did I say I voted for Bloody when I voted for Tracy? Um, and I think in my mind, it's a year ago, but I've been trying to keep my thoughts. But in my mind, once I knew that that vote had failed, because I saw the bloody vote happen, during the temple when the votes were read. Once I saw that, I was like, okay, I messed up, and it cannot get back to Tracy that I was the one that voted for her. Um, and sure, I could have lied and said that, oh no, I just voted for Jenny like everyone else did. But once you're voted most likely to be a snake by your team or by the whole tribe, it's not easy to get away with sneaky stuff like that. So it was kind of the lesser of two evils. Do I say, oh, Tracy, I voted for you, or oh, Bloody, I voted for you? And in my mind at the time, I was like, well, Tracy is very upfront. If you're against her, she's against you. And Bloody would be like, oh, okay, yeah, you voted for me, but we can move on. That had been happening to her the entire game. So in my head, it was like, okay, I need to get myself somewhat in the clear. I'll say I voted for Bloody just because if not, Tracy's setting her sights on me immediately. And yeah.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I totally hear that. I do still think that, a number of people never thought of you as like a snake at all. I mean, there's a couple people that definitely clocked it, but it's just interesting also hearing about that in the sticks where like Ben and Louise, but Louise especially right in the beginning, she says that like, it's interesting, like, well, I'm not sure if he was actually really crying or not, but like, it's so endearing, like you feel bad. But it's very interesting, though, that anyone ever thought you were a snake to begin with, even though you do later self-admit that you are a snake.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I personally didn't think there was any like snaky sort of gameplay in the beginning. A lot of it felt very, smart and straightforward. So that was just very interesting thing to see, like, period.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think I was being too snaky at the beginning. I think it kind of just fell on the lines of like who left fits this category the most when none of us really did. And I think I just leaned into it. I put on the fake tears. I was crying for everyone. Yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty good at faking crying. I've been doing that for years. And yeah, I don't know. I think I was just really going to roll with that to get that pity point, to get, people not wanting to target me because I'm breaking down because they called me a snake. And it worked. I remember in Ben's, or it might have been Ben and Luis, maybe Jenny was there, where they were talking about how like, oh, I'll throw a bitch fit if people say stuff about me again. And that's exactly what I wanted. I wanted them not to say stuff about me because, that would happen. And I think that also like kind of showed in my temple talk or lack of temple talking sometimes. I don't know if you noticed, but I only had, I think, 4 questions in the entire season that were aired. And I don't know if that was just because of the editing or what, but I also know like I fill a lot of dead space and dead air with my answers, but don't really say anything like too in depth. There's nothing really with it. I think 2 or 3 of them was like, I have immunity, ah, ha, ha, ha. And so I didn't want to give them that like, oh, I can kind of change things in temple. I didn't want that because we saw that happen with Jenny. We saw that happen with Bloody, where they were able to vocalize things in temple. And that eventually became what their threat was. So I was just like, let me, hold off on that. I think I would just sit quiet during most of the temples. And yeah, so I think that was part of the, if I needed to, I would, but I didn't want to have to rely on that the whole time. So yeah, I think I like kind of turned that on a little bit towards, my boot when I was in trouble. I was like, I got to do something. Obviously didn't work out, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the funny thing, like I just pulled up the responses for that challenge. And I mean, you, Bloody, and Jenny had the highest votes pretty much. I don't think anyone else really had anything towards it. Oh, Tracy had 1 and CJ had 1, but that was like nothing. But no, I mean, like, I think if you were in a different position in the game, I think, and I mean that the whole crying thing definitely worked. It definitely worked. There's no debating that. If you were in a different position, I think it would have benefited you even more. But the thing is that you were in a fantastic position in my mind, truly in my mind. And it's I guess it's subjective, I think your only like really fatal flaw was winning challenges, which is something that Matt and I had talked about on the podcast. But other than that, I think you were playing a fucking fantastic game. Everyone trusted you. Everyone liked you. You're strategic and you're good at competitions. Like you're pretty much, the most like well-rounded player. But yeah, it was just that your threat level got too high. And even Bloody says it. It's through the whole fucking roof. Like, but yeah, I just love that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was either after, I'm blanking on the challenge names right now. Either the Venus de Milo or Target Your Nemesis. That was where I was like, from here on out, I just have to win like every single one. Because I tried like, okay, I know y'all had the debate if I did throw or not. I tried. I'm very bad at throwing. But like for I can't remember what we called touchy subjects.
Feast for Dionysus.
Yes, for Feast for Dionysus, like the answers every time I would try and like throw was one of the ones where it was like two people won. So I wanted to pick someone that was like could be it, but I didn't think it actually was going to be. And then it turned out it tied. And so I think I won, or I got the like second place Eternal Flame by like 1 or 2 points. And so had those ones I tried to throw away, not actually counted, maybe I wouldn't have had it. But yeah, I'm just not good at guessing things wrong, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I totally with a number of split responses. Yeah, that definitely makes sense because otherwise, yeah, CJ would have won by like a point or two.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think you kind of reiterated a couple times, but I think the first time you probably did say it was the Target Your Nemesis one. And I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's, in my opinion, that's really like the only like crapshoot game we have.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there still is like a level of like, you're trying to make, an inference about like who could have possibly said this.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have people that are obviously throwing shit, they're throwing crazy questions like bloody to Michael, which was like kind of
Mm-hmm.
unexpected at the time. But yeah, I think it was probably around there. One thing I am curious about too is I believe if I remember correctly in the alumni chat, you had said that you had gone back, I believe, to after the season was over to do the
Mm-hmm.
Greek aqueduct to kind of like see if
Mm-hmm.
you can beat your time. Was that correct, right?
Not to if I could beat my time, if I could do it in one tap, which I was able to do.
One tap. Okay.
Yeah.
So with that, I'm kind of curious, were you able to, or did you ever go back and try the Heron of the Sticks challenge with the quarters?
Oh, yeah. The night of I did it because I was like, I knew I could do it. I mean, when we had our practice, I was able to do it too. But I foolishly put my coins down when we were told to stand up, whereas Jocelyn and Aaron have both said that they just held on to it and like were able to get themselves up. That was my mistake because we had all the practice time to fumble around and do whatever we needed to get it up. And then I was like, okay, well, put it down, stand up, pick it back up again. And I just couldn't pick it back up. But yeah, that night, I think I did it for at least maybe 10, 15 minutes just to prove that I could.
Wow.
And yeah, so it just didn't work out that one time during the challenge.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of crazy because, you think about the whole trajectory of your game, and had you had been able to get the quarters up and hold it for 10 to 15 minutes, I think there's a pretty good chance you would have won because the entirety of the challenge was less than 3 minutes. We didn't even make it to the next phase where all 10 quarters got added in.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well,
yeah,
Jocelyn might disagree because she said she could go for a long time if she had to. So,
which to be fair, that is why I said you might have been able to pull it off. No, but like Jocelyn, I don't remember from any of the footage Jocelyn ever really wavering during those like almost 3 minutes. So yeah, I mean, Jocelyn was like your biggest competitor. But yeah, I do think like, and I think the same thing about Jocelyn is probably something I'll reiterate on her podcast, but like had you had done that, you probably would have won Knowledge of Apollo. I can't imagine you would have lost at the Final Four challenge. And then you would have been in there in the final three. And I think it's the same thing with Jocelyn. Had Jocelyn not lost Knowledge of Apollo by a single point, I can't imagine Jocelyn would have lost at the Final Four challenge. And then at the end would have potentially won or had a really good chance. And I also said it, and I'm kind of curious on what you think, but like, I do think that if you and Jocelyn were at the end, I actually think Jocelyn might have been the only person able to beat you if you two were there with anyone else. Because obviously the jury is not very high on the current Final Four.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. I think she and I have two very competing storylines. Whereas, yeah, we both had our immunities, but she also had, the underdog story, the last one standing from her team. And then I had kind of the more top down play where she was bottom up. And so I do think it would vary on how we were able to, describe our game to the jury, who just, wasn't annoyed by someone faking crying. If that ever got out. I don't think I told anyone during the day, so I don't think they would have known.
No.
But, if they got annoyed at that, like Ben was saying, he was annoyed by it. So if that was enough to sour some votes away from me, that could have led to her winning. So I definitely do think it would have been a competitive finale if we were both there.
Yeah. And to also agree with you, yeah, you didn't tell anyone at all. The first time you ever mention it is when you enter the sticks. You actually lay out a number, and I mean, obviously it can't all make the cut. There's, for the round that you were in the sticks or you first entered the sticks, it's probably about like a 35-minute round. And I mean, we're only seeing 5 minutes of content, but yeah, you lay out a number of your moves and things that you've done. And so it's actually kind of funny, if you ever get a chance, I'd be willing to, or if you ever have the free time, I'd be willing to show you after the season, because it's interesting seeing all of the people's reactions. I wish more stuff could make it in.
Words could not describe how many times I've rewatched the jury hearing me say I voted for Tracy, because like all of them, like it's a little delayed, but all of them were just like, like, I don't know. I guess it was, a big kept secret. They fully believed me. Besides Bloody, I could tell she knew I wasn't, serious about it. But she also wasn't going to blow that up until, So it was very fun to see them all kind of react and be shocked that it was actually me who did it. And for them to learn that it was CJ's thrown vote that sent Jenny home, not mine.
Yep. That was a great moment. There was even more to that scene, not too much more, but there was more to that. And I love that. That was great.
I guess also, so one thing I have is like my approach to the final six. I think you can kind of see as the day went on, my brain switched back to more new school style play, where I was kind of thinking more strategically, and that there were advantages in the game, but the potential paranoia that there could be something. And so when I lost immunity, I was trying to play it chill. I didn't leave my room with Jocelyn. And my general thought was if they're thinking I'm not communicating with them, then something is going on. So maybe I should either flip or, figure out. And Erin kind of had the thought that I was going for in her confessional. She's like, I haven't heard much, so I don't know if I want to stick with the original plan or do this move. She ended up doing the move, which I do think benefits her in the game where it is now. And so I was hoping that maybe I could get either her or Michael to flip with that, and then figure out what the tiebreaker was, because we didn't know at that point. We still hadn't had a tie. And so that was my approach. It didn't end up working, but I was hoping I could kind of with that no scrambling to save myself type. Yeah.
Which I will say, I mean, we don't need to go on the tangent with that. I keep saying I did tell people the tiebreaker, but nobody seems to remember that I told you guys.
I don't remember it. I swear it was either first thing when we started or because I remember looking through, we didn't get the second addendum, which is what I was looking for where it would be.
It was told to you guys verbally. Yeah.
Okay.
Because
I fully forgot.
Yeah, I had said to you guys at the end of day one, the elder system was kind of going to be done. We're going to do something different with that in day two, and I don't think any of it made the episodes because it wasn't relevant to any storyline. But especially Ben was just there's going to be a twist. There's going to be a twist. We're looking for a twist, and I'm like, where did people get that I was throwing out a twist? But it was just the fact that the immunity holder, if it had gone to the point where it was tying and stuff like that, the immunity holder would get final say, which meant that Jocelyn would have gotten final say had it been a tie, and Jocelyn would have 100% kept you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if she's going to vote with me when we're at a 4-2 vote, she's going to vote to like save me at a tie.
Of course, yeah. So
Yeah, if only I could have flipped one more person. And the shoulda, coulda, wouldas would have been like, Tracy, we got to get CJ out. He voted for you, yada, yada, yada. But I also don't know. Her mind could have been way set well ahead of time. I think a lot of people's were when I lost immunity. It's what I would have done if I was in their shoes. But yeah, I tried to go out fighting. And like Matt was saying when they're on the podcast, like that if it was someone like them, they may have fallen for it and actually done it. So maybe I could have survived, just not with this cast.
yeah. I mean, and I think you did end up talking to everybody except Tracy. Tracy was in the room, I think, for like a brief moment, and Aaron. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, who knows what would have potentially happened? But yeah, it is kind of the shoulda, coulda, woulda. Like it doesn't really do any good to dwell on it for too long.
Casey, that has been my entire year watching these episodes. Like, oh, if I just did this or that, maybe if I saved Maddie. If Aaron was gone, we wouldn't be in this. Who knows? It's all those worlds of possibilities that racking through my brain this whole year. So yeah.
All right. So what else you got on the notes?
Let's see. I had claiming Bloody's vote, the whole snake thing, temple, F6 scramble, throwing. The rest is on Discord, which I have closed right now. Let's see if I can just think of anything. I guess kind of just. I don't know. I would want to see like how I would fare against the other competitors. Like if I had won the challenge, I don't know who would have gone. I think it may have been Jocelyn, unless, it might have been the same thing, just the roles reversed, me and her. And just like how things would have gone from there. But also, I don't know, that's more of that shoulda, coulda, woulda that I don't need to get into. But yeah, I guess also, I don't know, just overall, like the different story arcs and things I thought was really interesting to see throughout the season. A lot of my friends were saying like, oh, why are you being purpled at the beginning when my tribe was immune? So we had no reason to be shown. And it was nice to see like, the slow increase in my confessionals and like getting to see where I was in the game. Because I do think like, a lot of my stuff was kind of held in my head. I'm not the best at like doing a live confessional. It's more of like, I got to think and write it out. Like when I play Discord orgs, I spend about an hour or hour and a half writing like an essay confessional saying like, this is the plan for the whole week. Like everything is thought out. And so like when I have those spur of the moment kind of things, it's a lot harder to verbalize it. Like, I don't know, maybe I could have said why I did Bloody or claimed Bloody's vote in a confessional, but I just wasn't thinking about it during the time. So yeah, it was just like that, the different kinds of like things I was able to get in, or just what had space to get in, was really interesting to see.
Yeah, and it's also funny that you do say that, like about the confessionals, like planning them out, because I'm the exact same way too. Like the last game I played, my confessionals were literally like by far the longest confessionals in the game. They were like 30-minute like videos. But yeah, I do the exact same thing. But it's interesting though, had we had a longer game, I think we would have gotten hopefully more in-depth confessionals, but your confessionals are really good. I mean, we definitely had some players that didn't really say much. They maybe literally spoke like 4 sentences and they submitted a video, which was like totally not what the handbook said. Like we need more information, because the better your information is, the better we can edit your story. So, I mean, it's very interesting. I never really thought of your story in the beginning being purpled, but like I definitely purposely focused on the other team because they were the focus, so, but yeah, very, very interesting. So do you have any other things?
Yeah, I just like, I don't know, the whole difference, I guess, while we were talking about like the speed of the game. I remember in the like cast assessment podcast, I think it might have been Colin doing mine.
Yes.
I just remember him like talking about how he wonders if I'll be able to speed up for for a game like this, when I honestly think it's more of if I could slow down, because Discord speeds, you have about 5 to 10 minutes per round to think of stuff. Yeah, no, they go quick. They go very quick. So that's why, those moves and claim things that seem very out there and off. It's like, why is he doing this? It's because I'm used to having those spur of the moment decisions that I have to stick with. And I also mainly come from the sequester environment when I do speeds, which is much, much more messy, which is why I think those decisions that are like, why is this happening? What, like, it doesn't make sense to do it right now, is because I was like, oh, I have too much time to think right now. Let me just do something crazy. So yeah, I don't know. I think that was just like a big thing, was learning how to slow down my thoughts a little bit more, because I had more time to think, but not as much time as like a 24-hour cycle. So it's very interesting to like have that difference in like not 5 minutes, but not hours. So yeah.
Interesting. Anything else?
Let me see. I can pull up my Discord because I do have so much stuff. But it might be things to save for the finale.
Fair enough.
The reunion. Let's see. Ooh, yeah. Something else I was thinking. Because I just saw the message I sent to Bloody about cutting Tracy. It was that something I do wish like would be more possible to include in the episodes is like having some kind of DMs. I know it's not feasible at all, because who wants to just read the messages on the screen? No one does. But like when Bloody was like, oh, and you told me to vote out Tracy, I was like, I didn't tell you to do that this round. I told you that like 2 or 3 rounds ago, or maybe a round, I'm not too sure. And so like, just if I could, like had shown that, because in that was where I told Bloody about this like feud with Michael, which is really just me like kind of lying to separate the two of them and saying like, oh, he's worried about you and Tracy, blah, 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 blah. When really that was more me worried, because I saw that Tracy and Bloody were very close, because Tracy was like, Bloody's my girl. I didn't think Tracy was ever going to vote Bloody out, and she ended up not. And so I was like, I need to break that up before it comes to bite me in the butt. But I also want to save Bloody as my shield. So I was like, how can I get her to do it? I tried to push her there, and I wasn't able to get a direct enough, like not demand, like I wasn't able to directly tell her when we were doing it, or at least attempting to do it. And then like during tribal council, I wanted to say something like, oh, like some way to just signal her, like, this is what you have to do now. But I just wasn't able to verbalize it, or think of a way to do it covertly that also wouldn't be like, oh, this was a plan that was like set to go, that they just needed like to activate. So yeah, I don't know, would have been interesting to see it actually happen. That was another thing that was like, that whole tribal, I was like, could I tell her, could I not? Or that whole temple. And then I just wasn't able to.
Yeah. I mean, that whole thing's very interesting. I wish there was and I totally agree with the messaging thing. I thought about that as a possibility for season 2. And it is very difficult for a number of reasons. And one of them is, I mean, then you're just reading messages, and that's kind of like really boring. Mm-hmm. But I mean, that's hopefully where people at least leave us detailed enough confessionals. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, that one, there was nothing too clear in the cards. So even I was a little lost, but I was fairly certain that the vote that she ended up doing did actually come from your conversation with her in the prior round. I guess she was under the assumption that like the name you were suggesting to push in that instance when she was having all this computer troubles was Tracy. But you know what? Like, I mean, don't get me wrong. I really do love pretty much all the players in season 2, but I will say this is a very interesting Final Four. I especially with the large personalities we had going into this season, this isn't exactly the Final Four I would have thought for any of the top scenarios.
Yeah, I don't think I would have thought so either. Obviously I would have been there. So if I made it, I would have been there. So it wouldn't have been this Final Four. But if I were to have made it through that round, we might see at least, I mean, obviously we'd see one or two of them. I don't know if it would be the exact same. But yeah, because in my head, like as we were moving, I thought I had kind of people who were generally following me, generally like going along with my plans, things like that. And so I could kind of lead them into the final four or into the finale, whatever. And I looking back, watching it, I definitely was like trying to herd too many sheep in my eyes. And that is when, you know, they flipped it back on me. If I maybe didn't have that, then, you know, maybe it could have gone another way. But again, it's that shoulda, coulda, woulda that we don't need to get into.
Yeah. Who knows? Maybe there is a future where you play one of our other games, you know, and we get to see a whole different side of you, because we do have other games in the works. But just we're running off a very low production team. So, you know, it's for the future.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we'll have to see. After a game like this, though, it may be walking in with like a huge target on my back already, just because they're like, he won what, 4 individual challenges his season. Like, we can't keep him here. So
yeah,
I might. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, which I think I said this on the podcast too. It's so crazy because like when I think back to season 2, I think about like, damn, Antonio pretty much won like every single individual immunity. But then I counted up and I'm like, oh, wait, Jocelyn only like won one less than you, which is still very impressive. Like 3 and 4 wins is still very impressive, especially when you look at like everyone else who won or didn't win for that matter. It's a maximum of like 1 win. So yeah,
no, and like, I mean, definitely just the sheer number that both Jocelyn and I had, like, I think that washed out even the fact that CJ has won an immunity at this point.
Which no one seems to remember.
No one, I mean, I'm pretty sure I forgot, because it just seemed like, oh, I was safe and everyone's pointing the finger at me for having the challenge win. And I also think like he wasn't really an option the first round because we were all trying to stick together, except he wasn't, I guess. Yeah, like we weren't going to target him anyway. So anyone having immunity on Guyon during the first couple rounds, just, it wasn't necessarily like going to affect anything because we were always going to be safe for a bit. It was only once we started cannibalizing that the immunities were definitely necessary.
Yeah, which I will say though, you know, a number of you guys were lost during that first round because it was a blackout round. I mean, we like Michael didn't know where to vote. He didn't want to vote bloody, but it's not until shit came out, you know, a little bit in the open at Temple that you know, things started to get direction.
That Temple definitely clarified things for me because I had no clue. I'm pretty sure. Like definitely like names had been thrown out, but once like fingers were kind of pointed at Luis and that's where it seemed to be going, like that was where I was like, okay, we're all going there, I hope. And then, you know, that's what ended up happening. But yeah, I do remember that one pretty vividly. Like we were very lost. So it was nice to see how it all came together in real time.
Yeah, that temple was super long. It was actually a huge reason why the whole day too was like so far behind. But yeah, any other final?
You can't cut off that good TV.
No, absolutely not. We had a number of those, which I definitely let just go on. I'm like, I'm leaving it as it is. This cast is fantastic. But yeah, any other final thoughts before we conclude this?
I guess I'll just say wait and watch for the finale. I'll keep more thoughts for that because there definitely are more, but I don't want to give any spoilers. So I'll hold off for now.
All right. Sounds good. Well, on that note, thank you, Antonio, for coming on, and thank you everyone for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And on that note, we'll see you on the next podcast. Bye.
Bye, everyone.